All right. Well, I just want to thank everybody for going through the growth module, and I hope that you learned a ton there, and that you were able to really take in what I think is a really a key element of, and really foundational to what you're doing with your nonprofit, which is being able to grow it and reach new audiences, and really understanding what is good growth, and where you can put your money as a nonprofit into actually growing towards results, as opposed to kind of chasing down vanity metrics or things that seem shiny and new, but they're really not going to be that helpful, versus some time tested ideas and concepts that we've shown you in the growth module. I want to take a second here to bring in Brendan and Kristen and really have a panel discussion. And I've prepared some questions here to ask them in order to kind of informally have this discussion from their perspective as well, and get their ideas on growth and what they're doing within their organizations in order to grow. So, Kristen, I'll start with you, and we're going to talk about some of those vanity metrics. There are a ton of people that sort of laugh off social media metrics as a vanity. That said, as a nonprofit leader, how do you value social media metrics, and what is important to you? And then, of course, also what's not important.
Yeah, it's funny. You and I have talked a lot about this over the years. These vanity metrics, and actually, sometimes there's metrics where you and I both know they're vanity metrics. However, we might need to hit them because that's where everyone else is hitting, and that's the narrative, and it kind of leaves us in the dust. And so we've talked a little bit about that. Of all right, we need to increase our likes, even though our reach might be better. We probably should increase our likes because at this point we should be at least at this many likes to be considered a national nonprofit. And sadly, you do have media and you have supporters that actually look at those numbers. They're not looking at the numbers we're looking at, which is what was the engagement rate, right? How many people shared it or commented on whatever we posted, which we know is kicking everyone else's butts. We're also highly competitive here. But I look at Brendan. I do think though when we talk about what we're looking for and what I'm looking for as someone who's leading a nonprofit, when we talk about social media, I'm really looking at the ability to get people to take an action. So can we get a group of people to turn out at the Supreme Court for a rally or a prayer vigil that we're having? Are we able to get a group of students who previously have never really been engaged with us to sign up and start a new Students for Life group? For me, that's really the most valuable thing. Is it doesn't matter if I have millions of people on my Facebook page, but if I can't get them to do anything, what's the point? So that's what I've been focusing on. And sometimes it's hard because you have to figure out, how do we know if the digital played a part and played a role here? And so that takes, I think, some more strategic brainstorming of trying to kind of chase that down and know, did we get that conversion to action? But that's what matters the most to me.
Awesome. Yeah, and actually, it's really funny. We have there's a section, as you know, in the growth module that, and I say this a lot. Vanity metrics are a vanity until they're not. And the reality is like it is important, but it's understanding like what's that ultimate goal. And so that's really cool. I appreciate you kind of driving that towards the results. And Brendan, during my session, I talked about growth and turning likes to donations. But what is the most important connection, as you see it, between social media and fundraising?
Yeah, that's a great question, and something that we thought about a lot at Students for Life and with other organizations I've been involved with. And for me, from a fundraising perspective, social media is about branding, which is to say, in your target market. So if that is a local city or town, or if that's your state, or if that's national, everybody in your target market should have heard of you before they get a fundraising ask. So we used to talk about that a lot at Students for Life. Is every pro-lifer in America should know who Students for Life is, whether that's we're trying to activate them as volunteers or trying to fundraise. So when they get that prospecting letter, or when they get that prospecting email, or they're seeing ads, or we meet them at an event and it's a potential big donor, they should already know who Students for Life is before we even have that conversation. So when I say, hi, I'm Brendan, I'm with Students for Life, they say, oh yeah, I know Students for Life. I saw what you guys were doing over there. I saw it on my Facebook page. You guys are doing great work. And that to me is
That's huge. Yeah, that's awesome. Um, one of the and that's really, like you said, like kind of getting yourself out there and branding. One of the really kind of things that I run into when I deal with clients is that there's a fear of getting yourself out there, and it actually is like really scary. And so I'll use that to transition to this question, Chris. And I know you have to be on camera just about every day, whether it's a podcast or a webinar or Facebook Live or whatever. And I know it's something that you've had to become comfortable with. And since it's one of the important factors of social media and growth is really, like I said, just getting out there. What would you say to nonprofit leaders that are hesitant to engage or get on camera?
Yeah. Well, this one is personal to me because this is not doing Facebook Lives and launching a podcast and oversharing my life is not something that comes naturally to me. I don't, if I think if it wasn't for my mission, Students Life, I probably wouldn't be on digital media. I really wouldn't have a reason to be. I use digital media, and whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram, to extend what we're doing at Students for Life and continue to get the message out there, whether it's reaching a reporter or a supporter or a student leader. So it's part of my job, and that's how I kind of have had to train myself to get out there and do it, to realize this is part of what you signed up for as the head of Students for Life, and that means you've got to get out there, Kristen, and do these things, even if you don't really want to. And we all have parts of our jobs and our positions that we don't like or that don't come naturally to us, that might be a little bit more uncomfortable. So I would say if you're like me, I think if you just got to be consistent, you've got to get it on the calendar, post on Instagram today, or have someone, on your team who can post for you or can at least remind you to do it. I think that's important because a lot of times when you look at digital media metrics, I know when we look at our weekly kind of, our reach and our impact, if we've forgotten to post or if I've forgotten to post something, our reach goes down. And so just having content out there is going to increase our reach, meaning more people are going to see our message, our blog, our news article, whatever it was, simply because I just remembered to post. So you have to be consistent and regular about posting. And if you don't like it, I'm sorry, suck it up. You have to do it anyway. The other kind of thing I would tell you is just to be yourself. I mean, you think about, especially what we work with young people who are craving authenticity. They want authenticity. That's why you'll see, we can talk for hours about the Bernie Sanders effect and why is this older man, kind of a curmudgeon who kind of like yells at you from stage, attracting all of these young kids beyond his like promises of free money and free college or whatever. But it's really it's authenticity. They say this is a man who really believes what he's saying, and it might sound a little crazy, but this is who he is, and so they'll follow you. You don't have to be the most beautiful leader that there ever was and have the perfect hair or whatever. People will follow you if they know you're authentic, if they know your heart, if they trust your leadership. And so I would say don't try to model what you do online off of what somebody else does. Be who you are. Like, I'm a little sarcastic, I'm a little snarky, I share a little bit about my family and personal life, but not too much. Other nonprofit leaders, they're always sharing about their personal life. And so I just try to be who I am, and I'm comfortable in that. And I know this is my brand. And if and to be honest with you, my brand makes some people angry. There are people who don't like my brand and who will never subscribe to my podcast or follow one of my social media channels, and I'm okay with that. Our organization is large enough, and we're actually building up other personalities and brands. So if I'm not someone's cup of tea, but maybe another team member of ours will be.
I think that's awesome. And there's really two things there that I really want to emphasize. The first is that like you can't make everybody happy. And I know that that's like scary because like you're trying to fundraise. But the reality is like if you stick to your guns, you will probably do better. And that is just like something that is it might be uncomfortable at first, but it is so important as an organization, as a leader. Stick to your guns; it'll work out. You'll be just fine if you're authentic and people understand your passion, and they'll get behind you. The second thing is there's a Steve Jobs quote: "Real artists ship." And the thing is that like you were kind of saying, they're like, suck it up. It's about getting it out there. And so I think, and that was Steve Jobs's point, is you've just got to get it out there. If you don't get it out there, it can never have a chance to succeed. That's scary, but the reality is like if you don't get something out there, it doesn't have a chance to succeed, whether it was good or not. So you'll never be able to kind of find that out. So I really appreciate that, and that is really solid advice. I got one more question for the both of you. And I've already answered this during the growth session from my perspective. But what is, in your opinion, the future of online communication? And Brendan, I'll go ahead and go with you first.
Yeah, Joshua, this is no small question, is it?
No.
But I think when we talk about the future of online communication, really online anything, it's that everything is going to be integrated. You're going to be able to do everything that is online, and really, I mean, online is replacing so many other aspects of life um, that it's all going to be in one spot. And this is something that we're seeing in the industry I'm working in now with financial services and financial technology, which is the online experience is replacing all of the everything in the way that it used to be. And so one of the things we're doing is we're launching a whole new company, a whole new organization called System 7 Global, and it's going to be the entire financial ecosystem, everywhere that your money touches as an organization, everywhere that's related to your money, everything is going to be all in one spot. So from one dashboard, one place, you can see and do pretty much anything. And so this is going to be, it's really about ease of use and not having to go find things in different places and have different apps and spend all this development time integrating things together and putting stuff together. But also from our perspective, and what I think is really helpful for you in the audience, is that it's about protecting Christians and conservatives in the digital space. It's about not having to rely on organizations who are donating to people who violate our values, whose mission opposes our values. It's you as a leader not being at risk of getting turned off, so that all of a sudden, you can't fundraise because there's no way for you to bring in money. And so that's really what we're trying to do with System 7 Global is bring it together, bring it all in one spot, keep you safe, keep you protected, but also make it easy for you to use so that it's better than having that modular systems.
That's really awesome. And
What was the name
there
of
was
it,
this.
Brendan?
It's called
Yeah, I just want
7 Global.
to.
Coming this summer.
And
Oh, coming this summer. So stay tuned, basically. You just gave us a sneak peek.
Yes.
Uh, and one of the things there's a couple of things I wanted to point out. Kind of the integrated. That's such a key part of like ecosystems and just in general. We all have like the Apple versus Android. Like we've seen this ecosystem sort of get a little bit crazy, but in this one specifically, I think it's a really cool way of creating a solution to a problem because you want to protect people. That to me is like a really noble reason to create an ecosystem. So I think that's awesome. Kristen, like we mentioned earlier, you're a leader of a major nonprofit in the United States. So this is kind of something that I think all nonprofit leaders need to be thinking about. And so where do you take the question?
Future of online communication. Okay, so at Students for Life, we were kind of moving into this digital space before the COVID-19 crisis. Then, right when things started kind of ramping up, and we realized we were going to have to pull everybody off of campuses, when we realized we were going to have to go into quarantine, that's when I called you and said, "Okay, we're going full steam ahead now. We're going from the testing phase to launch overnight." So we were kind of already moving towards this of asking how can we supplement what we're doing on campuses and add to that digitally, not replace, but add to it and actually increase our effectiveness, right? And increase the number of folks we reach and we can turn out and that we convert. So I don't think it's necessarily having to know what the future holds in online, but I think it's being ready and being prepared for the challenges that are going to come your way,
Mm-hmm.
and to be looking for that and to have that kind of mindset of, okay, this might be working today, but there's no guarantee it's going to work tomorrow. And what are we going to do tomorrow if this doesn't work? And that's, I mean, I think maybe just the nature from our core audience being students, they get bored very easily. So something, everybody might sign up for a Zoom webcast in 1 month, and then 3 months down the road, that's old and no one wants to do Zoom anymore. And so we always have to be thinking, what's the new way we're going to communicate? So I think it's having this attitude of always being prepared, thinking ahead, and realizing that digital is going to change. And so you might have a strategy today that may not work tomorrow, and that's okay, but you have to be willing to be adaptable. And we've talked about this in other sessions,
Mm-hmm.
being willing to pivot and change. I think, for example, one thing that we're looking at, and I'm sure you probably already covered this, is, for me, a lot of what we're seeing is it's going to get smaller. That, a lot of our students aren't on Facebook, they're on Instagram. They've got small group conversations going on Snapchat where then I can't even reach them. So they're looking for real connection. They're looking to kind of cut out all of the noise. And so that's going to be a challenge for a lot of organizations when there's, our largest audience for many of our nonprofits are over 60 on Facebook. It's not the younger kids that are on Facebook. And so I think that's where we got to look with digital of there's going to be new tech coming out. There's going to be new apps that, are going to make the connection smaller behind, for groups of people and your friends. I think texting is going to continue to grow because that's, once again, you can be in a group text chat. So, but I don't know what the future holds, but I know that I'm constantly looking for it and looking for signs and seeing how can we pivot and change.
Yeah. So, I actually got to watch this happen sort of in real time and be involved, watching SFLA get real, into digital.
Mm.
And then COVID-19, I mean, as you said, that was literally a phone call. Josh, we've got to do this all online. And so but that was awesome because it was something where, like, I watched strategically how SFLA looked at that. And I think it is a model that I cover a little bit in my growth module, and it might be covered other places here, but it is something that is so important for organizations to really look at because it's a bit of a beacon about how to look at the future. It's not predicting it; it's just really being ready for it. And one of the other things that you talked about, and I think this actually is the future of online. I give a couple of examples of what that future for online communication might be, but like the smaller group conversations, and that authenticity of that smaller group conversation, where organizations really can't infiltrate, that actually is part of that future. And so figuring out how to build those communities now and being a part of them as opposed to trying to infiltrate them later, I think that is an important thing for organizations to reflect on right now, because if you're locked out of the conversation in the future, those are your potential donors, those are your potential supporters. You want to be building the places for that conversation now. So I think that is phenomenal. I think that's awesome. So I just really appreciate you guys jumping in on the growth module and just kind of answering some of the giving a different perspective, and that I think that the listeners probably really do enjoy, and look forward to the other modules. Thanks.